Hey there, survivors. Thanks for tuning into this story. If you're new here, consider subscribing. It really helps keep these stories coming. And before we start, a big thank you to those supporting the channel with an extra membership, especially the Scouts. I see you, I appreciate you, and I create this for you. Now, let's get started. The building had that late afternoon drag, the kind where the lights buzz just loud enough to notice and the air vents seem to push recycled fatigue through every office cubicle. From my spot near the glass, I could see the Chicago River sliding past like a dull silver belt, lined with boats that hadn't moved all day. My monitor glared with the usual spreadsheet nonsense, numbers that meant nothing except that I'd done what I was told. Around 2:30, a co-worker from legal dropped a link into the chat. Something about a cargo ship quarantined off the New Jersey coast. Rats, apparently. Dozens of them. Some dock workers got bitten. One report said a security guard had to be hospitalized. There was a vague mention of rabies, the kind of word that makes you pause for a second, then click away. I barely skimmed it, dropped it in my junk news folder, and went back to parsing formulas I'd already checked 3 times. By lunch, the story had started mutating. Not the official kind. The rumor kind. Some guy from sales leaned across the cubicle wall, talking about riot shields being used inside a grain hold because the rats wouldn't run. Another claimed a dock worker lost a finger and didn't notice until someone pointed out the blood trail. People added their own versions before the hour ended. I nodded, smiled, and let it drift past while I watched the movement outside. A tour boat coasted under the bridge with no passengers on board. The surface of the river shimmered in the wind, and above it, a slow spinning cluster of pigeons caught the thermal rising off the tower. They weren't in a hurry. Nothing felt urgent. It all looked normal. Then, right before 3, a pigeon slammed into the window near conference room B. Not a soft tap, an impact hard enough that the glass gave a deep metallic ring. It left a greasy smear and spiraled out of sight. Everyone froze. Eleanor from HR had been mid-sentence during a presentation, just standing there with her bullet points about wellness benefits, and she went dead silent. Another bird hit the opposite corner, then a third. Wings spread, bodies grey and flailing. It wasn't one bird in a panic. It was something else. Someone in the back snorted, like it was some prank pulled by the interns. But I kept looking out the window. More pigeons were circling now. Tighter loops, lower angles. My monitor went to its screensaver and reflected my face, floating above the skyline like a ghost. I reached for the mouse, killed it, and forced myself back to the spreadsheet. Not because it mattered, but because I didn't know what else to do yet. An alert buzzed across my phone around 3:03. Not the kind you remember, just a grey city-issued notice. Avoid contact with wild animals. Report unusual behavior. Don't feed strays. It listed raccoons, coyotes, pigeons, rats. Generic, sterile. But something about the tone felt detached, as if whoever wrote it didn't understand what they were describing. Or maybe understood it too well. I dropped it into the office chat. Omar from IT responded with a raccoon emoji. Someone else posted a meme about government paranoia, and then the 4th bird hit the glass. This one came in full speed and hit just to my right. A thud so solid it knocked my pen clean off the desk. The sound didn't fade right away. It hung in the air, like a missed heartbeat. About 10 minutes later, security started making rounds. Brewer, the day supervisor, came up from the lobby with his radio clipped to his belt, and that sheepish expression he wore whenever he had to tell grown adults to go home early because of a plumbing issue. He said building management wanted everyone out by 5. He made it sound like a casual request, not a directive. Said to avoid the downstairs plaza, especially if pigeons were active, and that we should take our laptops just in case. Someone asked if this was another flu scare. Brewer said no, nothing confirmed. I followed him to the stairwell, caught up and asked him straight. He said, not yet, and didn't stop walking. By 5, the elevators were full, people and rolling carts packed in like it was a snow day. A woman from accounting had brought her golden retriever to the office earlier, tucked inside a soft-sided carrier. She'd heard rumors about downtown getting weird, and didn't want to walk alone. The dog was alert, ears up, looking at everything. Security reminded her pets weren't allowed in the tower. She said it was just one night, that he wouldn't be a problem. Brewer looked at the dog, then at her, and just let the elevator doors close. I waited for the next one, then skipped it and went for the stairs instead. I wanted to move without people. That's how I always know something's wrong. I start choosing solitude over speed. The stairwell carried a dry, static smell. Dust over metal, the kind that builds when no one uses the emergency exits for more than fire drills. On the 20th floor landing, there's a narrow window that overlooks Wacker Drive. I paused there, pressing my palm against the glass, and stared. The sidewalks below looked wrong. Empty. The kind of empty you don't see on a weekday downtown. No joggers, no families walking the river path, no tourists taking pictures of the drawbridges, just a slow city truck crawling past, dragging an electronic road sign behind it. The message blinked in orange letters: avoid wildlife, keep doors closed. Up near the corner of the building, pigeons clustered on a ledge, shoulders puffed up, eyes alert. One jabbed hard at another's throat, again and again, fast, aggressive. I turned and kept going. The lobby had that hollow, off-schedule feel, like an airport terminal after all the flights get grounded. Security had roped off the front entrance. Brewer was back near the main desk, speaking into his radio in short, clipped bursts. A janitor pushed a trash cart toward the revolving door, holding it open just long enough to toss out a black bag. 2 pigeons lunged at him the second he stepped out. He yelped and swung the bag in defense. The plastic tore open. Takeout containers burst across the pavement. And that's when I saw the first rats. Not 1 or 2. They came fast, out from under the big potted ferns near the windows, moving like they'd been waiting for that exact moment. One of the women near the rope screamed. Brewer shouted for everyone to back up. His voice was firm, not panicked. I moved with the rest. No hesitation. I waited until there was a break in the mess outside, until I couldn't see any wings or tails moving through the revolving door. Then I pulled my coat tight, ducked low, and stepped out onto the sidewalk. I didn't run. Running draws attention, especially in a city where animals had started behaving like they knew who was paying attention and who wasn't. A pigeon landed near my left foot, close enough that I felt the movement in the air. It didn't fly away, just hopped sideways and tilted its head at me, like it was trying to figure something out. I stepped around it and didn't stop moving. The river was sharp on the wind, smelled like rust and wet concrete. I didn't look back. My apartment is a 10-minute walk that becomes 20. A guy ahead of me kicks at a rat with his boot and misses. The rat darts under a black garbage bag that twitches like something alive. People stand at curb edges and stare at the sky. Sirens weave in and out. Across the river, a helicopter drags a message speaker and says, "Please remain indoors. Keep windows closed. Do not handle animal carcasses. Do not attempt to relocate pets." The voice pauses between sentences in a way that says this script is new. My building is old brick with steel fire escapes and a front entry that sticks in summer. I get inside fast, lock the door, and take the stairs. On the 3rd floor landing, Mrs. Tanaka from 3B cracks her door and asks if I heard the news about New York. She says her cousin sent a video of rats pouring from a freight hold like a bad dream. I tell her to keep her cat inside. She nods and says she will, of course, as if that advice is insulting. I say I'm serious. She nods again, smaller this time. I fill the bathtub and every pot I own. I learned that trick during a boil order last winter. If pumps stop, gravity wins. A few minutes later, a city alert says exactly that. Fill containers, boil water, close windows, avoid animal contact. The words stack up. The bathtub looks ridiculous and smart at the same time. Night doesn't bring quiet. More helicopters. Short bursts of shouting from the street. A dog barks, the kind of bark that isn't for play. A man yells at someone to get inside, and then yells again in a way that makes me imagine a door that won't close fast enough. I keep the lights low and watch the street from my kitchen window. A cluster of pigeons peck at a fallen bag of chips like kids at a birthday table. 2 suddenly turn on a third and won't stop until it stops moving. I look away and fold foil over a pan, like that will help. At 10:41 p.m., My phone vibrates with the emergency tone that slides up and down like a siren. The banner reads, "Emergency alert. Viral outbreak confirmed. Do not leave your home." It lists symptoms for animals: foam, agitation, confusion, sudden attacks, collapse. It lists guidance for humans: if bitten, isolate immediately. Seek medical attention if available. Do not handle wildlife. Do not attempt to relocate pets. Keep windows shut. It says the word lyssavirus like the person who wrote it knows we'll all Google it. I don't. I already know what rabies does. I sleep in sweats with shoes beside the bed and the hallway light on. I set a pot lid with a handle near the door because it looks like a shield in a pinch. It's a dumb idea that still makes me feel better, so I leave it there. Morning looks like a Sunday with a headache. The street is too clean of people and too dirty with loose trash. City trucks block the far lane. A worker in a high-visibility vest tosses bird bodies into a bin with tongs. He moves fast. A second worker stands watch with a broom like it's a weapon. They look up every few seconds, not at traffic but at the edges of the buildings. And I get it. That's where birds come from. The office group chat pings. Elena says, building access is limited to tenants and security only. Omar says, the company will keep remote work going. Someone jokes about working through the end of the world. I close the chat. By noon, the city posts videos of how to seal vents with plastic and tape. I square off my AC grill with painter's tape and a trash bag. Air moves behind it in little scoops. The plastic ripples in slow breaths. I push the edges tight and add more tape. I pull books off shelves and block the gap under the door. I find a hammer in the bottom of a drawer and feel foolish for not owning better. I wrap duct tape around the handle until it feels right in my fist. At 2 p.m., Brewer texts my personal phone. He never does that. We traded numbers once when the building had a power glitch, and I was the only one still in the office. He says our tower is in lockdown for 48 hours. He says, if I need to get in, come through the loading dock on the canal side after dark when pigeons roost. He says he needs hands. I look at my water, my food, my small stack of cans. I text back and ask what he needs. He says eyes and bodies who can carry. He says some residents didn't make it home and security is stretched thin. I tell him I'll come after dark. Between now and night I keep busy. I tape flashlights to broom handles to make a reacher for stairwell switches. I cut cardboard into forearm guards and strap them on with belts to test the idea. It looks silly in the bathroom mirror. I leave them near the door anyway. I eat slowly. Every spoon of beans feels expensive. After sunset, the city quiets in that way a city never truly does. Distant sirens soften. The river is a black lane that catches light and smears it. I pack a backpack with water, a roll of tape, a strip of plastic sheeting, a towel, a headlamp, gloves, the hammer. I add a kitchen knife taped to a short length of dowel, not because I want to use it, but because I hate the idea of needing it and not having it. I pull on a hoodie and a baseball cap. I put on leather work gloves with small cuts in the palms and patch them with tape. I lock my door and leave. In the stairwell I move slow and quiet. On the second floor landing, a small grey form lies still, with a thin thread of something dark near its mouth. I step wide. The hallway smells like cleaner and old dust. I crack the front door and listen. The street is mostly empty. A single car idles mid-block with hazard lights on, and no driver. A pigeon watches from a streetlight arm. I time my move to a gust of wind, so my noise hides in it. Head down, one block at a time. At the loading dock, a security guard I don't know checks my face. Then Brewer steps into the light and nods. He looks tired in a way I haven't seen on him. He asks if I'm good with stairs. I say yes. He says good, follow. Inside the dock, the smell hits first. Old fruit from a trash bin, cleaning chemicals, wet cardboard, and a blanket of rodent musk. Brewer keeps talking as he moves because motion seems to hold this place together. He says some tenants who were still in the offices stayed up through the day. He says food deliveries didn't come. He says the birds got bold around noon and started hitting the glass in flocks, not singles. He says the elevators are unreliable now because maintenance left. We take the freight stairs. We climb to 8, then 15, then 23. On 23, a man in a button-down opens a door with a length of cord tied around the handle and a desk wedged behind it. He looks relieved at Brewer and angry at me because I'm extra weight. Brewer says I'm here to help and pushes past. Inside, the floor is dim. Desk lamps burned all day and the air sits heavy. A woman on a couch has a bandage on her forearm. She says a rat bit her near the vending machines. She looks at the bandage like it is a snake. Her name is Maya. She works in tax. She says she is fine. She says it hurt and then it didn't. And now she feels nothing. Her voice is dry from hours of saying the same thing. Brewer's eyes flick to me. He doesn't need to say what we both think. I ask when it happened. She says morning. It's night now. She is still speaking like herself. I let out air I didn't know I kept. We move through dim cubicles and gather what we can lift without making a racket. Water cooler bottles, boxes of granola bars, paper towels, cleaning wipes. We use rolling chairs as carts because noise comes in different flavors, and a chair's soft wheels whisper compared to a rattling dolly. Brewer leads. I bring up the rear. A rat darts across the walkway. Maya sits up and flinches. I hold the hammer with 2 hands until it disappears. On 26, we meet a cluster of people from the 28th floor. They've moved down because the ceiling tiles up there started to sag with pigeon nests and droppings, and someone used a broom to poke at a bulge, and 3 birds came out like a trap. The 28 crowd looks organized in a way that comes from fear. The tallest man introduces himself as Jared, and he talks too fast with nervous discipline. He says they have a plan and rations, and that he intends to keep his people safe. Brewer says, "We're sharing water." Jared smiles with no humor and says, "Of course, we all will." 2 minutes later, he whispers something to his group while pointing at our water bottles. I file that away. We create a small depot on 21 near a break room that faces the interior core. No windows, good sightlines. We stack the bottles behind an upended table and tie rope from a supply closet around the legs so the stack can't be pulled fast by surprise hands. Brewer shows me a plywood panel he slid into wall tracks to make a quiet gate for the corridor. Felt on the edges. Rope pulleys that drop it in a single smooth motion. He says he built those during a union strike years ago and never thought he would use them for anything more than a drill. He grins for half a second at the absurdity of it. On the way back up to 23, we hear a cry from the stairwell 1 level down. Brewer raises a hand, stops us, and listens. Another cry, a man's voice. Sharp, then slurred. We move down fast, 2 steps at a time. On 22, a door is propped with a backpack, and I see warm light, then a shadow jerk, then the edge of a chair skidding across tile. Brewer steps in first and points his flashlight low. A man in a security polo is on one knee. Another is on the floor, jaw clenched, fingers flexing at odd angles. The kneeling guard says his partner got a bite while cutting open a snack box in the vending machine room. He says it was nothing, a small nip. And then 30 minutes later the partner started shouting and swung at him and then collapsed. The partner's eyes are open but rolled off to the side. He whispers something about bats. The kneeling guard keeps his distance. He's scared and ashamed that he is scared. Brewer tells him he did the right thing. He says we will look in on him every 15 minutes. He says, "Lock the door and don't stand too close." Words that sound cold and necessary. We leave. Back on 23, Maya thanks us for the water like we gave her gold. She asks if a human can spread this to another human without biting. I tell her I don't know. Brewer says the health department is still learning. He says what we know is this: animals carry it easily. Not all humans progress the same way, and most die fast. He doesn't use the word zombie. None of us do. Maya nods and pulls the blanket tighter. We rest in short slices. Brewer goes to check the 28S. I sit near the plywood gate and listen to the building breathe. Noises filter in from the street in weird order. A car alarm, a burst of recorded siren from a police speaker, then a stretch of nothing that feels like a held note. I talk to Maya about nothing at all, because talking is a way to keep the edges from folding in. She says her dog is with a friend in Hyde Park, and she regrets not keeping him with her, and then she corrects herself because that might have been worse. I say I get it. Brewer returns with a sports bag full of first aid stuff and a printout from the city that reads like a wartime leaflet. How to avoid bites, how to wash a wound, how to isolate, how to secure vents, how to cover gaps, how to move in stairwells without stirring nests. It includes a diagram about pigeons and the way they test glass with soft strikes before committing. It has photos of droppings and warns about scratching, not just bites. He drops the bag and tells me to sleep with one eye closed and the other open. It's a joke that doesn't land. Near dawn, a sound wakes me that I don't know at first. Not a siren, not a voice, a soft, wet scraping. I stand, hold the hammer low, and walk to the gate. I lower my head to the floor edge, where the felt meets tile. The sound is behind the wood, small feet on linoleum, then a soft chewing at the corner where wood meets wall. I whisper Brewer's name, and he's up before I finish it. He nods once, tight. He taps the board with the handle end of a wrench, quick and sharp. The chewing stops. We wait. A minute stretches, then the scraping slides away. At 7:20 a.m., the building's water pressure drops and doesn't come back. We all feel it in the sink handles that spin against dead pipes. Brewer curses under his breath and pulls out a clipboard like he can bully the infrastructure with a checklist. He says we'll need to move to water discipline immediately. He says we have to send a small team to the cafeteria on 17 to pull what we can before the rats break through. He looks at me, and I nod. We form a line. Me, Brewer, a skinny analyst named Chris, who looks like he hasn't slept in a year, and a maintenance tech called Luis, who still has his keys. We tie pants legs tight at the ankles. We pull sleeves over gloves. We carry towels to throw over animals if we must. We move to the stairwell and descend. Luis goes first, not because he wants to, but because he knows the doors. He opens the 17 door on a slow count, flashlight pointed low. The cafeteria is still. Chairs are on tables. The coffee machine light shows blue. The vending machines sit like cabinets of treasure. We move fast to the back and pull bottled water, peanut butter, crackers, rice, anything sealed. We pile it on a table, pack bags, and get ready to roll. That's when we hear wings. Not a big rush. Whispery, tiny flutters, like paper fans. Pigeons in the ceiling void. We look up and see the track where a tile is slid aside. A beak appears, then a head, the eye flat and wrong. Luis lowers his light. Brewer gestures with 2 fingers. Slow, quiet, out. We start for the door, and a chair slips from a table leg and touches tile with that little squeak chairs make. The bird drops from the ceiling and hits the table next to me. It isn't graceful. It skids, wings open, then jumps at my face. I throw the towel and it takes the towel as target and tangles. Chris has a broom handle and pins it. Brewer lowers the plywood gate just as 2 more birds drop from the vent, hit the barrier, and scrabble. Their feet scratch the wood in a sound like someone sanding a canoe. We move through the door and pull it shut. I stand with my back to the door until my breath evens out. Back on 21, we stack our haul behind the felt gate and count. It's not much, enough for a day or 2. People drift in with faces that expect miracles. We explain twice, then post a list of how many calories per person, per day, basic numbers. Jared from 28 watches the posting like a man sizing a fence. He thanks Brewer for the water, shakes my hand, and smiles with too many teeth. He keeps glancing at the stacked bottles. I catch his eyes and hold them until he looks away. By afternoon, the city feels like a throat clearing that never resolves. Helicopters move in wide turns. The bridges half raise and stay there, odd angles over the water like someone forgot them. A digital sign on the south bank scrolls "Stay indoors" in bright orange dots that flicker in the haze. Pigeons line the ledges in quiet rows until something stirs, and half of them lift in a sudden wave and slap against the nearest window glass. It looks random. It isn't. They test surfaces. They learn. On 23, Maya sleeps and wakes and sleeps. Her skin feels hot when I hand her water. She thanks me and asks to see the sky. We walk to a conference room and look down on the river. A man in a red jacket stands near the railing and waves at nothing. A dog paces the walkway, leash trailing, stops, looks up. The man tries to pet it. The dog pulls back and then surges forward, and the man shouts and jerks away. He doesn't fall. He pushes the dog off and it runs. He stands for a minute, hand out, not sure what just happened, then slowly walks away, the leash still dragging behind the animal as it disappears under the bridge. Maya sits. She says she will not leave this floor. I say that's fine. Brewer finds a maintenance map that shows a locked storage room on 18 with more paneling and fasteners. He wants that wood for gates. He asks for volunteers. I tell him I'm in. Luis nods. Chris hesitates, then nods because not nodding would look worse. We go. The door to 18 is stuck, and then not. Inside the storage room, a smell rides the air that makes my mouth fill with water. Dry grain, old bird, damp cardboard. Luis kills the light and listens. The scratching starts in one corner, soft, then many. A rusty brush dragged over rough wood. Brewer closes the door, takes a second, and says new plan. We go to 20, wedge that door, and come back with a large sheet of plastic as a slip barrier. We use gravity. He sketches in the air as he talks. In my head I see a simple thing. Plastic taped to floor and frame so claws can't grip. Panels slid down over it. Edges sealed quick. Silent, smooth. No catches for teeth. We gather the kit and come back. We set the plastic. Luis holds the top edge with his forearms. I tape fast, messy, then clean. Brewer works the panel along the tracks with slow hands until it kisses the floor. We stand for a long minute. The scratching comes and stops. A nose presses under the edge and slides off the plastic with a soft squeal. I feel thankful for every stupid late-night video I ever watched about pest-proofing a shed. Back upstairs, our small win buys us exactly 1 hour of good mood. That's how fast things move now. On 22, the bitten guard starts shouting through the door. The kneeling guard from last night has drifted into a stare that keeps breaking like a bad radio station. Brewer talks to him in low tones and sets up a ring of chairs a few feet back to keep people from crowding. We keep the door closed. A woman from marketing throws up in a trash can in the hall and then apologizes to the trash can for using it like it is a person. We all pretend not to hear. Late afternoon turns into the worst hour. 2 of Jared's group try to walk off with 3 bottles. Brewer blocks the corridor and says we share by plan, or we don't share at all. The taller of the 2 raises a pry bar he pulled from a closet. I step forward with the pot lid on my arm like a buckler and the hammer low. It feels ridiculous until the pry bar lifts. Luis moves to my left with a length of pipe. We don't say anything. We don't make loud noises. We just hold the line with quiet faces. Jared steps between us fast and tells his guys to stand down. He smiles and talks about misunderstanding. The pry bar lowers. He says they'll send someone to help with night watch. Brewer says fine. He doesn't smile. We set watches in 90-minute blocks. The city throws a pale glow through our windows. The office lights stay off. Pigeons keep up a low coo like a broken engine. Rats whisper in vents. Somewhere on a lower floor, a dog yips, then yips again, shorter, then stops. We all hear it and do the math and say nothing. On my watch, I walk the corridor, check gate edges with a flashlight, and listen near vents. I pause by the supply closet where the parakeet man lives. He named the bird Scooter and used to bring it to Zoom calls as a joke. The closet door has tape across the frame now. A note reads, "Do not enter." I lean in and hear the tiniest sound. A scratch scratch and a flutter flutter like a card in bicycle spokes. I move on. At 3 a.m. a single thud against glass wakes half the floor. 2 thuds follow, then a rain of small impacts that turn into a steady drumming. The birds have chosen our windows as a place to learn. We move people into interior rooms, close blinds, and set up desks as a second barrier in case the glass gives. It holds. The sound runs for 20 minutes, then shifts east as the flock moves to the next facade. We stand in the dim like people under a tin roof in storm season, waiting for it to pass. Morning brings a broadcast on a loop from a helicopter that says the same sentences over and over. It uses the phrase, cross-species lysovirus. It says, most human cases result in rapid decline and death. It says, A minority of human cases demonstrate acute behavioral disruption prior to collapse. It says, avoid bites, scratches, and contact with fluids. It says, pets can be carriers. It says, animal control services are overwhelmed. It says, do not approach birds. That last line is said twice. Maya wakes with dry lips and stares at the ceiling. She asks what day it is. I tell her. She says her parents live in Skokie and will not understand why she hasn't called. I offer her my phone and a battery pack. She calls, and when her mother answers, Maya speaks like she is at a checkout counter. Hello, yes, I'm fine. No, I'm in the office. Do not open the windows. Do not let anyone bring a pet inside. Yes, if you see a raccoon, stay away. She hangs up and laughs once, small and sharp, and then she eats a cracker very carefully, as if the cracker is medicine. By midday, we have to get more water. The only place with remaining bottles is the executive floor. That space has a big patio and bigger windows. It also has a bird problem. Brewer wants a 4-person sweep with nets and towels. We tie towels to poles like makeshift screens and wrap our forearms tighter with cardboard. We step into the executive reception area and are met with silence and stale perfume in the air. It looks like a furniture showroom. We move through with soft feet. The first pigeon is on the floor near a leather chair, head tucked at an angle that says, done. The second is very alive and very still on the back of the chair, watching us. It doesn't move. The third lifts from behind the receptionist desk like a missed cue. Luis covers it with a towel and pins it. We slide around, collect the bottles from a kitchen alcove, and then a fourth bird shoots through the open hall like a dart. It doesn't attack. It tries to get past us to the windows and hits glass. It falls and tries again. It tries 3 times. On the fourth, it stops trying and goes still. Chris whispers, okay, 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 like he's soothing someone. We back out slow. Jared's crew meets us at the stairwell and offers to help carry. I let them, because it's smart to show trust even if my back stays tight. We make 2 trips and no one runs with a bottle. Small win, maybe the last. Afternoon bleeds into a mess. On 22, the bitten guard who was shouting goes quiet and doesn't wake. The kneeling guard from last night sits alone with his radio turned low and stares at the door like he's memorizing the paint. I bring him water. He nods. He doesn't drink. He asks if his partner said anything before he went quiet. I tell the truth. Yes, he said bats. The guard nods like that matters in a story he is writing in his head to explain an ending that should not be like this. A fire starts on 24 when someone tries to boil water with an alcohol burner on a desk and the little blue flame tips into a paper basket. The sprinklers don't trigger. Brewer and I hit it with 2 extinguishers and a wool coat. The extinguisher powder coats every surface and makes the air taste like chalk. We open a small window in a corner to vent and immediately close it because 2 pigeons land on the sill and peck at the gap in a way that feels like they practice. We seal the edge with tape and a plastic cutting mat. Late day, Jared asks for a leader council. His words, not mine. Brewer says fine and meets him near the break room. I stand off to the side and let my face look bland. Jared talks about territories and locked floors and exchange of supplies. Brewer listens, says we will keep the gates and the water on 21 and that he will accept help for night watch and for scavenging runs. Jared doesn't like it, but he calculates something and nods. He suggests his crew control the stairwell junctions. Brewer says no. Jared smiles again with those 2 white teeth. He says, we will revisit. That word hangs. That night, a voice on the radio finally says what we all know in our bones. The port quarantine in Newark failed. It says rats moved through rail corridors faster than expected. It says birds spread it where rails didn't go. It says some cities shut down bridges and tunnels, and that slowed cars, but not wings. It says vaccines are in development. It says clinics will open tomorrow. It says wash wounds immediately. Half of those sentences feel like hope. Half sound like wishes. The next morning the city looks hungover and empty. A tug drifts with no barge. 2 men on the deck wave at a helicopter and then walk in a slow circle like they are arguing about which way is home. Maya tries to stand and can't. She smiles at me in a way that aims for brave and lands on weary. She asks me to record a voice note to her parents if she gets too tired later. I say yes, and my voice cracks. I blame the dry air. Mid-morning, the parakeet closet tape is peeled back. Someone went in. I find the door ajar and push it with one knuckle. The cage is tipped. The mirror toy lies on the floor. Feathers dust the vent. In the duct, a line of droppings looks like punctuation. Little dots in a long sentence. I close the door and tape it again. I write "Do not open" in block letters so thick the marker squeaks. We need to fill more containers since the sinks are done. Brewer suggests the restrooms on the 17th, where the toilet tanks still hold water. It's clean enough to boil. We gather a team with buckets and a rolling cart and move. Quiet steps, eyes ahead. In the hall outside the restrooms, we meet a pair of dogs. Collars on, tags, real house pets. They stand alert, ears forward, not growling. Their bodies are too lean for this early in the crisis. One limps. The other holds its head at an angle that says off balance. The limping one steps toward us, not to greet, but to test distance. Brewer lifts his hand and says, "Steady." Luis nudges the cart's wheel to the left, makes a tiny squeak. Both dogs twitch and surge. We throw towels as decoys and slip past, slide into the restroom, and lock the door. The dogs hit the other side with their bodies. Not a frenzied attack, just hard pushes, like they want through. We scoop water from tanks into buckets and pour into bottles with funnels made from cut soda bottles. The dogs stop pushing after a minute. We wait a few minutes longer because patience is cheaper than blood. When we step out, the hall is empty. On the way back up, we hear voices from 28 shouting down the stairwell. Jared's crew argues about who stands the first watch. Brewer keeps moving. He hates the sound of men jockeying for place when the river runs with quiet boats and the sky holds 100 beaks we don't control. I get it. Afternoon turns sharp. The birds choose our windows again, and this time hit in a wave like a rehearsal became a show. The first paints spiderwebs. The second takes a star crack. The sound jumps down my spine. Brewer orders desks against the inside of the worst glass, and we wedge bookcases and slide whiteboards behind as a shield. A bird finds a gap at a window latch and sticks its head through, beak snapping. Luis covers it with a piece of carpet remnant and leans his whole body against it until Brewer arrives with screws. The carpet thrums with the bird's fight for a long minute and then goes slack. We don't move the carpet. We screw through it. Jared shows up with two of his crew offering help. He moves supplies with us, quick hands, and then pauses by the water stack. He looks around like an actor checking his mark. He calls to his guys to help reinforce the 28th floor gate because pigeons got into their ceiling. Brewer gives him a roll of tape and a plank. Jared takes it with a smile and then quietly lifts 2 bottles from the far side of our stack as if I can't see. I see. I don't say a word. I walk past him, lift those exact 2 bottles from his hands, and put them back. I meet his eyes. He grins, then lets them go like it was all a test. He says he likes my style. I tell him to like our rules even more. Toward evening, the city speaker trucks roll again. The voice cracks over the river. Clinics at designated locations are closed due to staffing. For bites, isolate. For scratches, wash and isolate. Do not attempt to reach hospitals on foot. Avoid birds. Avoid rats. Avoid stray animals. Avoid pets that display agitation. A lot of avoiding. Not much doing. I feel a slow anger settle at the base of my skull and burn just enough to keep my feet moving. Night 3. The building makes a new noise. At first it sounds like rain in a far room, patter on metal. Brewer and I follow it down 2 floors to a service corridor where the ceiling panels bow. Rats. Not 1 or 2. A steady flow of tiny bodies running along cable trays, probably pushed from a nest by hunger or noise. They pour over a damaged section where a tray bends and drop to the floor in a smooth, silent waterfall. We stand and watch because watching is information. Then we move. We lay the plastic slip on the floor, tape the sides up the wall, and tilt the tray edge with a sign holder so the bodies slide into a smooth bin we made from a cut storage tote. It looks like a fool's contraption and works anyway. They pour, slide, flick, and gather in the tote in a tangle, and then scratch at the walls and can't climb out. We carry the tote to a service elevator shaft that isn't moving and tilt the open edge in. We don't watch what happens next. We slide the panel closed and tape the crack. This is ugly work. The choice is uglier if we don't do it. Back on 21, Maya asks if she can walk a loop. We go slow. She leans a bit. She thanks me for not speaking to her like a sick person. I tell her I don't know how to talk to sick people the wrong way or the right way. She laughs soft. We pass the parakeet door. The tape holds. A small smear the size of a coin darkens the frame near the bottom hinge. I pretend not to see. After midnight, Jared's crew makes a move. 2 guys try the back corridor gate with a crowbar and get it 2 inches up before Brewer drops it back down with a rope yank. The rope gives him leverage. I am at his shoulder with the hammer. Luis stands 10 feet away to watch flanks. Jared appears and puts on his friendly face. Says his men were checking the gate for faults, the way neighbors check fences after a storm. Brewer tells him to step back or we treat this as theft. Jared gauges the room and retreats. His eyes, though, those eyes do not retreat. At dawn, Elena shows me her bitten hand. She says it happened when she tried to untangle a pigeon from a curtain on 24. The bird bit down and worked its beak side to side like a fish testing a hook. She says she washed it in the sink and poured hand sanitizer over it, then wrapped it. The skin around the puncture looks red, but the swelling isn't bad. She asks if she should tell everyone. I say yes. She nods and does it without tears, without drama. She asks for an empty office with a door and a window that doesn't open. Brewer finds one. She goes in with a bottle of water and 2 protein bars and tells us to check every hour. We do. The day runs like a relay. We move supplies, build a second gate, retrieve rain covers from a rooftop storage box to catch drizzle on the south terrace. We rig a downspout into a clean garbage can with a mesh screen. The water is brown at first and then less brown. We run it through coffee filters for sediment. We boil what we can over a small gas canister stove in the break room with a fan pointed at the sensor to fool it. I feel like a criminal making soup. The city below degrades. Pocket fires at intersections with no one to put them out. A bicycle lies on the riverwalk like the rider simply stepped off and walked away. A small group moves along the path with hockey sticks and buckets, scanning the ground in neat sweeps. Rats scatter before their feet. One person carries a plexiglass riot shield with a store logo on it. That looks smart. On the radio, a scientist with a steady voice talks about the strain. He says it carries in saliva and tiny droplets, and that birds may scratch it into skin. He says it burns hot and often kills quickly, but some human brains react with sudden violent disinhibition. He says those episodes don't last long, and then the body fails. He says this is not undead fiction. He says this is a disease that took the paths we built for it. Grain ships, rail lines, park feeders, pet bowls on porches. He says the vaccines under test work on animals in limited trials. He says we need time. Time is the one thing that drips through our fingers. By evening, Elena's voice is weak. She asks for paper and a pen. She writes short letters to 2 people. She asks me to deliver them if I ever walk out into the world again. I say I will try. She smiles like she knows what try means. She thanks me for seeing her as a manager and not as a patient. Then she closes her eyes. She still breathes. Brewer sits outside her door and keeps a quiet watch. Jared comes with a trade, a box of medical gloves for a case of bottled water. Brewer considers. He trades 2 bottles, not a case. Jared says, "We will remember this." Brewer says, "Good." He wants his people to remember the rules. Jared nods. He leaves. I say this ends in a fight. Brewer says everything ends in a fight if water runs out. He taps his list with his finger. We have numbers for 5 days if we're careful. I imagine day 6 and don't like the picture. Night falls like a curtain someone pulls too fast. The birds quiet down, heads tucked, ledges crowded. The rats rise with confidence. If I open the gate an inch to listen, I hear claws on painted metal and the soft squeak of bodies turning in tight slots. We run the silent gate routine at one more corridor with the plastic slip and lock it down. It buys us sleep. Not much. Enough. In the small hours, a noise finds us that sounds like praying. and ends like a sob. It comes from the 22 door. The kneeling guard is there alone, hands clasped, not really praying, more like holding his hands still so they don't shake. He asks if we can let him sit with his partner for a minute. Brewer says no. The guard nods, then lowers his forehead to his hands, and sits that way for a long time. I want to put a hand on his shoulder, and don't because touch has become a currency with rules. I sit on the floor 6 feet away and keep him company without closing the gap. Morning 4 breaks with a drip from the ceiling near the break room. Rain. That feels like winning the smallest lottery. We set every clean surface we can under the capture rig. We filter, we boil, we label. People take sips like it's a tasting event. No one wastes a drop. A man we haven't seen before appears from the stairs carrying a crossbow that looks handmade. He says his name is Malik and that he works night shift 2 buildings east. He crossed rooftops to get here because his building had a fire. He asked to swap bolts for food. Brewer says yes. Malik is precise, quiet, careful with footsteps, and not interested in long explanations. I like him immediately. He shows us how to anchor a rope line across a hallway for a trip barrier that doesn't make noise when someone hits it. He sleeps in a chair for 2 hours and then is gone again without a sound. At noon, a new sound rises from the river walk. Not bird, not rat, people. A small group moves with purpose in matching raincoats. They sweep the railings and bench undersides with long brooms and headlamps. They carry sacks that clink. They are not city workers. They move like a crew that answers to a boss. One of them whistles up at our building in a pattern. Jared's guy on lookout answers with 3 short knocks on the glass. I don't like this crosstalk. Brewer doesn't either. We tell Jared to keep his window closed. He pretends he didn't hear. Maya wakes from a nap and says she dreamed about a park where pigeons bobbed for popcorn and a little boy laughed at the way they walked. She cries once, a quick burst that feels like a valve clearing, and then she smiles and says she wants tea. We don't have tea. I heat water over the canister and let a clean paper towel sit in it with a slice of lemon from the executive fridge. She drinks it like it is the best thing on earth. Maybe it is. Late afternoon, the window on 24 finally goes. The crack lines from yesterday spread with a little pop sound, and the pane gives in like an egg under a thumb. We have desks stacked against it, and that buys us 10 seconds to slam the inner blinds and shove a bookcase sideways. Pigeons hit the blind and stick like darts in a corkboard. The blind rattles with beatings. We press from the other side with a door we unhinged, wedge it with a chair, and screw 2 brackets into the floor with a cordless drill that Dennis from accounting guards like a sacred relic. The birds tire fast. 1 falls and doesn't move. 2 more flap, then slow, then sag and dangle, claws tangled. We step back and breathe through sleeves. We tell people not to look. We cover the whole mess with a drop cloth and tape the edges. It becomes a lump in the room that we collectively decide not to name. Jared uses the chaos to try for the water again with 3 guys. This time, he brings a nail gun he found in a construction closet and points it at the floor, not at us. He says, we all drink from the same pool, so his crew should hold the pump. Brewer says, drop the tool or leave the floor. Jared laughs and says something about democracy. I step forward, pull the pin on a fire extinguisher, and spray a white blast at his feet. The powder hazes the air. He coughs and backs up. Luis yanks the nail gun free and tosses it behind our gate. I lower the extinguisher and say nothing. Jared stares at me with an expression I can't read, and then turns away. He will try again. I know it. The radio talks about bridges lifted in other cities. It talks about cats becoming vectors in apartment buildings. It says birds in large roosts can seed an entire block in an afternoon. It says the river can be a barrier for some animals, but not for rats that ride on debris. It says emergency food distribution will begin soon. It doesn't say where. It doesn't say how. That night, Elena stops breathing. She does it quietly. Brewer was at the door, and he heard the change in the room the way a person can hear the microwave stop from the other side of an apartment. He waits 10 minutes, then enters with a mask and gloves. He closes her eyes and covers her with a clean sheet. He asks for help to move her to the conference room. We turned into a quiet place. 3 of us lift. We do it with care. No priest, no words, just careful hands. We place her on the long table and leave the door closed. Brewer stands there alone for a while. I watch from the corner and then join him without speaking. We stand with a person we knew for a moment longer. That is the least we can do. Morning opens with a grey drizzle and the river just a shade darker than the sky. 2 sailboats bump each other near the bend. No sailors on deck. A dog trots the walkway with something tied to its collar that looks like a note. I see it look up at 3 different windows in 3 different buildings. Is that training? Is that chance? It disappears under the bridge. We decide to raid the law library on 25 for leather-bound empties to rip up for straps and ties. Leather is strong. We pull spines, coil strips, and make harnesses to tie our gates tighter. In the stacks, a pigeon sleeps upright on a shelf between 2 case reporters, as if he is also reading. We slide it off with a towel and set it outside the gate, where it flaps once and then goes still. We say thanks to the room for the straps, because it feels right to keep some sense of manners. On 20, Malik returns and shows us a trick for pigeons that roost on long beams. Fishing lines strung in loose nets that suspend under a joist, hard to see, easy to tangle. We string a few. It works fast. 2 birds drop into a gentle trap and rest there, confused, until we lower them into a bin. We handle them with gloves and long tongs. We make our world a little smaller and a little safer, with quiet lines and patience. Jared walks by and watches with hooded eyes. He says, "We're good at building cages." I say we're good at surviving. He tells me survival and control are cousins. I tell him water and distance keep us alive. He shakes his head and walks away. He is not wrong. He is not right. He is a man who wants to be in charge, because the building is a map, and he sees empty squares he can color. Afternoon brings a new problem. Someone sees a cat in a window on 27, eyes blown wide, tail lashing, body pressed to the glass. The owner is a young man who keeps saying she is sweet and won't harm anyone. 30 minutes later, screams pop through the floor. We run up. The door is open. The cat is nowhere. The man sits on the floor with a towel around his arm, sweat everywhere, saying it was an accident. She panicked. She didn't mean it. We wash the bite with water we can't spare and wrap the wound. He apologizes to us in a stream of words that tells me he knows what might come next and hopes saying sorry can push it away. We set him in a small office with a window that doesn't open. We tell him to call through the door if he needs anything. He nods. He is a child for the next 10 minutes and then a man again. We all pretend we believe in a third option. Near dusk, Brewer sits us down and lays it out. We have food for 3 more days if we're lucky, water for 5 if rain holds, wood for 2 more gates. The birds learn. The rats adapt. He says staying may kill us slow, and leaving may kill us fast. He says no one leaves without a plan. He says we can use the pedway in the loop, the underground walkway that links buildings, if we can reach it. He says the pedway might keep us off the street long enough to reach a grocery with steel shutters. He says we need to decide tonight. I watch faces swing from hope to calculation to fear. We will argue later. Right now, we move in quiet, because motion beats panic every time. I volunteer for the scouting team because I'm built for corridors, not committee rooms. Brewer picks me, Luis, and Chris. He hands us a thin coil of paracord, 2 towels, a pair of tongs, a pry bar, and a laminated map of the pedway that tourists used to carry. The kind sold at newsstands that no longer open. We tape up sleeves and ankles. We tape over vents in our masks so nothing slides in. We look like a cheap version of people who know what they're doing. We step into the stairwell. The air holds a smell that says, rats have claimed this space as a highway. We move slow. We tap the railing once near each landing to warn and flush. On 15, a nest at the back of a vending alcove bursts and a slick of bodies runs across our boots. We keep walking. On 10, a pigeon sits in the corner of the landing and watches us pass, head ticking, not moving. We keep our faces forward. On 4, we hear voices on the other side of the door. We flatten to the wall. The voices are calm, low and steady, like men doing a job. They mention bolts, hinges, and time. This is not city workers. Luis makes a face. I mouth, "We go down one more." He nods. We reach the basement corridor and follow the signs for the pedway. The sign has been pried off and sits on the floor like a token someone forgot to pocket. The corridor smells like wet concrete. A rat scurries over my shoe, stops, turns, and goes back the way it came, as if someone called it. We reach the pedway door and find it chained with a bright new padlock. The chain looks recent. There's a note taped to the door that reads, "Access by arrangement only," with a phone number. I recognize the area code as local. I picture the crew in raincoats on the Riverwalk. I picture Jared's quiet signals. Someone down here wants to sell safety one link at a time. We backtrack, climb, and return to 21 with the news. Brewer nods like he expected it to be hard. He rubs his face and says, "We'll cut the lock tomorrow or find another entry." He says, "We'll do it before dawn, when birds sleep deepest and rats are fullest." He says, "We only get one loud action before everything smart in this building comes to look." He says, "We make it count." I sit with Maya and tell her the plan in simple sentences. She says she wants to help but also doesn't want to move because the floor feels safe. And this is the strangest part. Both are true. I tell her to sleep. She nods. She says when she was a kid her brother used to catch fireflies in jars and let them go all at once like a tiny universe. I say that sounds nice. She smiles and closes her eyes. Night falls, and with it a feeling in the halls like the building inhales and holds. I walk a last loop. The parakeet door's tape puckers at one corner. I press it flat. At Elena's room I stop. The shape on the table rests under the sheet. Brewer left a small note by the door. "Thank you." He didn't sign it. He didn't need to. I add a second note. "We remember. It is nothing, and it is something." Before sleep, I take one more look out at the river. The city is a scatter of lights, not a skyline. Something moves in the black water and then slips under. A pair of birds sit on a streetlight arm with their heads backward and tucked, the way birds sleep. The emergency alert banner pops again on my phone. Same words as day one. Maybe because there is nothing else to say. Emergency alert. Viral outbreak confirmed. Do not leave your home. The advice feels less like a rule and more like a dare now. I set the phone face down, place the hammer by my toes, and take the kind of sleep that isn't rest, just an off switch for a couple of hours. We wake before dawn. Malik meets us at the stairwell with a nod and a coil of thin wire. He says he will cover the landing above our work and whistle if anything moves. Brewer checks our kits like a coach before a grim game. He taps the paracord. He taps the towel bundles. He squeezes my shoulder. He says, "Come back." I say, "Okay." My mouth is dry. We make the basement in 5 minutes with soft steps. The lock waits, shiny in the dim like a tooth. Luis sets the pry bar in the chain and levers until the steel creaks. Chris holds the towel over the bar to muffle any snap. I watch the corridor and count breaths. The chain pops and the sound is not loud, but it is a gunshot inside my ribs. We pause. We listen. The corridor holds. Luis slips the chain, opens the door, and we step into the pedway, a long tunnel that smells like cleaner and old gum. Our lights catch wet footprints heading east. Human, small, maybe a woman or a teen. The set is fresh. The hairs on my arms lift. We follow the prints in short stages, checking corners, stopping at lines of shadow. A rat runs the opposite direction along the wall and vanishes into a crack the size of a wrist. A pigeon sleeps on a sign frame, head tucked, feathers puffed against the cold air down here. I resist the urge to spook it. Past a right turn, voices carry, low and steady. We kill our lights and crouch. 2 people stand at a gated shop front arguing in whispers about cans. One holds a bat with duct tape on the handle. The other holds a sack that clinks. The Batman wants more than a fair split. The sackman says no. The argument edges towards something dumb. I consider slipping past. Luis touches my elbow. He points up here. Above us, a vent grill rattles as if someone or something crawls in the duct. We wait. The grill stills. The Batman decides to take half and leave half. The sackman agrees. Small mercies still exist. We move when they move, ghosting their footsteps for cover. At a junction, the footprints break left. We break right to the grocery. The steel shutter is half down, bent at one corner like someone tried to pry and gave up. Luis gets his bar under it and lifts. Chris rolls under on his shoulder and pulls from the inside. I duck and slide in last, keeping my elbows tight. Inside smells like spice and oil and the sweet rot of fruit. We move through aisles like swimmers. The produce section looks like a battlefield for small teeth. The dry goods shelves hold value we can carry. Beans, rice, flour, oats. We fill our packs with sealed stuff and leave heavy sacks. We take water by the case. Every plastic crackle makes me wince. A sound pops behind me like a cardboard box flexing. I turn and catch a flash of movement on a high shelf. Bird. It perches on the edge of a cereal box and watches. I raise a towel and take 2 slow steps. It hops back and then sideways along the shelf lip, calm and curious. I choose not to chase. Some fights are signaling. I will not signal a chase to a bird that knows this store better than me. We exit with our loads, slide under the shutter, and seal it with a twist tie through the bent corner. It won't slow a thief. It might slow a bird. Back in the pedway, we kill our lights and wait for our pupils to adjust. Far down the hall, a beam of light sweeps like a lighthouse. I count 3 people by shadow, and 2 more behind. They move with that crew rhythm I now recognize. We press to the wall and let them pass. Breath quiet, faces still. One pauses and sniffs the air like a dog. I do not move. He walks on. We hit the stairs and climb, legs rubbery, lungs hot. On 8, Malik whistles the soft 2-note we agreed on. We stop. A pigeon sits on the landing above. Wings spread, body low, not asleep, not calm. Behind it, 3 more set their bodies the same way. They look like a wall of small shields. We lower our heads and move up slow, towels ready. The lead bird does not attack. It waits. It takes 1 hop left to test us. We hold. It takes a hop right. Luis shifts his foot an inch. It launches. The other 3 launch with it. They hit our towels and push. We hold the fabric tight and let them push against it until their bodies give out. It takes seconds, not minutes. We step over and keep moving. Malik meets our eyes and nods. He says nothing. Back on 21, we spread the food on the floor and count. Brewer smiles with half his mouth, the first smile like that in days. We portion silently. Maya opens her eyes and claps once, tiny, like a child told a promised trip is still on. Jared shows up and says, we owe his crew a cut for guarding the stairwell. Brewer says, your crew guarded yourself. He offers 2 cans. Jared wants 8. Brewer offers 3. Jared takes 4 and says, we will talk tonight. I say we will not. He stares at me, and then at my hammer, and then at my face again. He smiles and walks away. For a while, just a few hours maybe, the building doesn't feel like a war zone. People sweep glass out of corners, boil water with quiet focus, and cook small meals with whatever they can stretch across the last burner canisters. There's a rhythm to it. Filter, tape, portion, seal. It feels like we've earned this brief spell of calm. Brewer says Elena shouldn't stay on this floor. Says the conference room is for talking about plans, not storing bodies. So we wrap her carefully, lower her into the service shaft using paracord, and one of the padded swivel chairs as a stretcher. We do it slowly, with hands that don't shake. And when she's gone from our floor, we say her name twice, once in silence and once out loud. Then we get back to work. No speech, no prayer, just work. Late in the day, I catch a glimpse of something in the river that stops me cold. It rolls just beneath the surface, pale and bloated, then turns enough to show part of a sleeve. Maybe a shoulder, maybe a head, hard to tell. Then it disappears beneath the bridge and the water closes over it like nothing ever happened. I stand at the window for a long time, holding the frame with one hand, not looking for answers, just anchoring myself. My world has gotten smaller. No more skyline, no more breaking news, no more city. Just this floor, our gate, our stack, our people. Jared makes his move after sundown, right on cue. the kind of man who thinks night is a disguise. We hear the scrape of a pry bar against steel, and everyone moves in sync like we've practiced it for years. Brewer drops the gate rope from his perch. I step in with the extinguisher and fill the hallway with a white blast of cold powder. Luis lunges through the fog and yanks the bar out of Jared's hands. Chris covers the flanks with that rusted piece of rebar we all now call the equalizer. Jared coughs hard, stumbles out of the cloud, and glares through the haze. He points at me, then at Brewer, then at the water stack behind us, like he's drawing a map in the air and we're standing on his treasure. I step forward. I don't say anything. I don't need to. He retreats, muttering something about tomorrow. But tomorrow from his mouth always sounds like a warning, and a threat rolled into one. Later, when things settle, I sit with Maya near the old copier, both of us tucked in under blankets, pretending this is just a strange office sleepover. I talk to her about things that don't matter, the way the river changes color in October, how my old bus driver used to honk twice when kids waved at him, the smell of a bakery near my old building that used to sell out of pastries by 9 if you didn't get there early. Maya adds her own details. A coffee shop near her last apartment, where the guy behind the counter wrote everyone's name wrong on purpose, just to make them laugh. We create a little city between us, one made of places that don't exist anymore, not the way we left them, places that birds and rats and ash haven't gotten to yet, places that can't be torn up or chewed through. I drift off sometime past midnight, legs stretched toward the gate, my back propped against a metal file cabinet. It's not the kind of sleep you fall into. It's the kind that hits you after your body forgets how to stay upright. I'm under just long enough to lose track of time, when a sound wakes me. Not claws, not wings, paper, crinkling, dry. I open one eye and see a note under the gate, slid from the hallway on the other side. Someone put it there carefully, silently. I pull it slow and unfold it. The handwriting is crisp, like a teacher's. It says, Pedway access. River crew can open bring trade. A phone number sits at the bottom. I fold it again and pocket it. I don't wake Brewer. Not yet. This isn't a tactical problem. It's a moral one. Trade means deals, and deals mean favors. Favors become leverage. Leverage turns into people like Jared buying little pieces of your life, one concession at a time. The sky doesn't lighten so much as go grey. Dawn crawls in slow and cold. Outside, the ledges are still. The pigeons tuck their heads under their wings like they're rebooting. The city has that eerie hush again, like it's waiting for someone else to decide what comes next. I go to the window, breathe into my sleeve, and wipe the fog with the back of my hand. Everything feels like it's paused, mid-sentence, mid-collapse. My phone pings with another emergency alert. I don't bother reading it. I already know the message. Viral outbreak confirmed. Do not leave your home. I tap it away and stare at my reflection in the glass. There's a stranger in my place, holding a hammer like it means something. I put it down, pick it up again. The choices ahead of me aren't good or bad. They're just lined up like cans on a shelf. Cut a deal, cut a lock, hold the gate, risk the pedway, give too much and run dry, give too little and go to war. It's not about winning anymore. It's about picking the option that gets someone to next week. Brewer shows up without saying anything and stands beside me. His eyes follow the river, then shift to my face. I hand him the note. He reads it once, then again, folds it into quarters, presses it flat, and taps it against his palm. He says, "We can't pay in water. If they want food, we'll walk out with empty bags. If we say no, they'll close the pedway and box us in. But if we pick the ground, set the pace, choose when and how, we might come out ahead." He suggests mid-morning, when birds scatter and men get careless. He says, "We take Malik, pick 2 more. Maya stays behind, near the conference room. If we lose this floor, she locks that door and waits." He says all of this with the calm voice of a man who's seen disaster walk in through the front door and learned how to ask it politely to wait in the lobby. I tell him I'll go. He doesn't blink. Says he figured I would. Tells me to eat something because everything weighs less with a full stomach. So I do. half a cup of oats and a thin layer of peanut butter scraped across half a cracker like rationed glue. I drink 2 swallows of rainwater we caught in the drainage barrel. Then I start gearing up. Retape my sleeves, check my laces, slide the cardboard arm guards back on and cinch them with twine. I wrap a rag around the hammer grip so it won't slip. Paracord goes in the bag, towel, zip ties, battery pack. I pack like I've done this for months, like I'm not just some guy who used to argue about pivot tables and deadlines. We'll cut the lock. We'll face the river crew with their sacks of salvage and their tight dead eyes. We'll offer a trade we don't intend to honor, then set new terms. We'll cross whatever lines they draw and draw ones of our own. And we'll do it without some movie speech about resilience or brotherhood or purpose. We aren't heroes. We're survivors who learned how to seal vents with trash bags, rig tripwires with lamp cords, and scare off birds with towels and broken brooms. We're tired. We're underfed. But we're not done. Not yet. That's all for now. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to keep the stories alive. For now, stay quiet, stay vigilant, and stay alive. Jack's Nightmares, signing off. Until next time, survivor.